In almost every instance of achieving something within our society that pushes us towards being more equitable and equal, we have had protest.
The Boston Tea Party, which is celebrated in American history, one of the formative events of the American Revolution, was a form of protest.
The Civil Rights Movement brought us the Voting Rights Act of the 1960s and also brought us the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the end of segregation within our society.
She did what?
Daddy changed the world.
Daddy changed the world.
One thing this lady said, I will never forget, she said, I want to apologize because I didn't get involved in this fight until it literally hit my living room. Her son was shot through the window by police in the living room. I don't want to get involved in this movement just because someone in my family dies. I want to be involved, right now fighting for the cause.
There's always been a 9-minute moment of silence, for the 9 minutes that they were kneeling on George Floyd. I think the most impactful part of that moment of silence is actually taking that kneel for 9 minutes and just seeing how bad it hurts. It hurts me to kneel for that long. So to think that someone was actually going through, that physical pain to inflict pain on someone else is just, it's mind-boggling.
We got there and started standing in front of City Hall, and there was someone who was playing the piano and who was singing, and also we met the organizers, and I just went up and spoke with them for a bit, which was super inspiring. They were my age.
I think when everything started happening, I think I wanted a way to use my voice. It just felt very powerful to be able to say, we're not going to stand for this any longer, and just seeing people of all different ethnic backgrounds being there.
Basically, it was supposed to be this candlelight vigil. What actually ended up happening was that there was a helicopter circling around for 30 minutes around sunset, being oh, this is an unlawful assembly, you need to leave or else you're gonna get arrested. But I was okay, we don't have a curfew. Like I said, it was totally peaceful. So I was just under what law are we breaking?
Protests where everybody is law-abiding are fully protected by the First Amendment, the right peaceably to assemble. But it's got to be peaceable. They have the right to stand outside a store with signs saying unfair to labor or abortion is murder. But if they have signs saying the owner is a child molester and he's not a child molester, well, that could be libel, could be defamation, so they wouldn't have the right to do that.
I really noticed that Breonna Taylor wasn't getting as much recognition, and the police officers who did kill her have not even been arrested or anything like that. So when I had the opportunity to go to a worship protest at a church, I was this sounds cool, and it's something that I'm super passionate about.
Social media actually was my biggest tool for a literary journey to liberation. I literally created a flyer and got together with 3 of my very close friends from the city, hey guys, let's all meet up in the park and just create a healing space.
People just looked up the hashtag, so we used the hashtag Black Lives Matter Pasadena, and then people showed up based off that hashtag.
You could organize one by seeing a friend of yours and saying, hey, let's go down the corner and hold up a picket sign. You organized your protest, and there doesn't have to be any formalities.
On the other hand, if you want to occupy space that's otherwise used for people to drive around places, you want to be on a street, then in that case, you need to get a parade permit or a demonstration permit. And that's something where you need to figure out what city you're in. You have to go to the proper place there.
Do you have a headache, sore throat, cough, nausea, any loss of sense of taste or smell? These are the symptoms of COVID-19. If you're having any of those symptoms, you shouldn't go because you want to protect others. Our team recommends going with people who you've been sheltering in place with. Keeping moving is probably important. It creates some ventilation so that you're not sort of being exposed to the same sort of amount of virus that might have been expelled by somebody. And then when you get back, thinking about whether you should get tested after you've been to demonstration or a bunch of demonstrations.
The problem, however, has been in protest movements that have been so successful is that you have a pushback that always occurs. For example, if we look at the formation of the nation, and very shortly thereafter we have, war with Britain again. We call it the War of 1812. And then we also, if we look at the Civil War, we have a Reconstruction amendments, the 13th, the 14th, and 15, but soon thereafter, as early as 1870, there was, while the amendments were still being put in place, there was pushback from there, and Black males were disfranchised after getting the vote. There were the Black codes, which placed Black people back under the control of white Southerners, etc.
This country is broken to the point where it has to be fixed, and it has to start somewhere.
What's gonna really start that is legislation and voting and getting educated on the political aspect of things. A lot of the people at the protests were, for the majority of the people, teenagers to 30s. So people who historically aren't known to vote. So I hope this movement especially, and just everything that's come out of it, is inspiring and kind of a catalyst to get people to get out there and do that.
We continue to have protest movements that are very successful on paper and in legislation, but there's still conditions within our society that speak to inequality, and that's why we continue to have protest movements.
A lot of people are waking up to things that have been going on for so many years, and I think there's no greater time than this, because a lot of people are at home and we're forced to watch the news.
Cultural, legal, social change, an hour later or a day later or a year later, a lot depends on your timeline.
Well, I think protests are absolutely key to creating a better, more humane and equitable society.
Change is happening right now. The more that we're loud and the more that we're staying in these people's spaces, a policy is literally changing.
The school district, the one that I attended when I was growing up, they suspended all their contracts with police officers.
The police are being defunded, resources are being shifted. Breonna Taylor's law was passed and enacted. There's no longer a no-knock policy. So things are changing. When you are loud, people are listening. And so I think we just needed to keep it up. And it's changing little by little.
So we need to continue to protest.